Hey everyone, it's Rick Straser, Southern Nevada Director for the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. I want to talk to you today about having a little clarity in our faith and what it means to have a faith that is strong and rooted and grounded in something that's deep. And I want to talk to you about a character in the Bible who goes unnamed, but has a huge impact for us when we look at what it means to have faith. Now, as athletes, you all have faith in your abilities, you all have faith in your coaches, you all have faith in what you're going to do moving forward, what your plans and hopes and dreams are. But this is something that's grounded in something deeper, because our faith has got to start with our relationship with Jesus. And this person in the Bible, this character in the Bible that I'm going to read to you about, is in 3 of the Gospels. Again, she goes unnamed, but she shows us what it means to have a faith that is so strong that she was completely healed just by her faith. And it's an example to us about where our faith should be as well. I want to read to you from Mark 5, verses 25 to 34. Like I said, there are 3 of the Gospels that mention this woman. She's in Mark, Luke, and in Matthew as well. But this is the longest passage about this woman and about what she was going through. It says this, Mark 5, 25 to 34. A woman in the crowd had suffered for 12 years with constant bleeding. She had suffered a great deal from many doctors, and over the years she had spent everything she had to pay for them. But she had gotten no better. In fact, she had gotten worse. She had heard about Jesus, so she came up behind him through the crowd and touched his robe. For she thought to herself, if I could just touch his robe, I will be healed. Immediately, the bleeding stopped, and she could feel her body that she had been healed of the terrible condition. Jesus realized at once that healing power had gone out from him, so he turned around in the crowd and asked, "Who touched my robe?" His disciples said to him, "Look at this crowd pressing around you. How can you ask who touched me?" But he kept on looking around to see who had done it. Then the frightened woman, trembling at the realization of what had happened to her, came and fell to her knees in front of him and told him what she had done. And he said to her, "Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace. Your suffering is over." Now, it's interesting because in contrast, there's a story earlier in the book of Matthew that talks about Jesus and his disciples being in a boat at night going across the lake, and a huge swell of a storm came up and shook the boat so much. It was a huge storm. Jesus had fallen asleep. And the disciples came to Jesus terrified, waking him up saying, "How can you sleep? We're going to die." And his response to them was, "Where is your faith?" So let me ask you this. What question do you want Jesus asking you? Where is your faith? Or do you want him to say to you, your faith has made you well? This woman, this unnamed woman, had suffered for 12 years with a bleeding disorder. It was mostly believed to be like a continuous menstrual cycle that she was going through. And in that day, that condition made you unclean because of the constant bleeding. And because of that, you were not allowed to be around people. Anything you touched was deemed unclean. Any person you came in contact was deemed unclean. So this woman was ostracized to the outskirts of town, maybe even out of town. And she had heard about Jesus, and she wanted healing. And she believed so wholeheartedly, she had such faith that he could do something to heal her, that she risked her life. Risked her life? Well, what do you mean? Just her going into town and being around people. Remember, this was a huge crowd that had gathered around Jesus. Just her going into town, she risked her life, because if she would have been recognized as unclean and being in town around people and probably touching people as she was trying to get to Jesus, she probably would have been stoned to death. That was the penalty for that. So she put her life at risk to get to Jesus. How much are you willing to risk to get to Jesus? You willing to risk some relationships of people who may not understand or accept what your faith is? Are you willing to risk playing time? Are you willing to risk where you're going to go and what you're going to do? Because God cares about us so much and has such perfect plans for us that if we are in his will, we are just where we need to be. This woman had suffered for a long time. She had gone through a storm for 12 years, and she saw a solution, and that solution was in the person of Jesus Christ. So she risked everything, even her life, to get to him. And just the touch of his robe, it said that the robes had like fringes on them or tassels, and she just touched the tassel of the robe. And if that happened, can you imagine what you could do to get to Jesus? What could be done for you if you would show the faith of this woman? Because, see, then there was no ability to have that relationship with Jesus like we have now. Because of the death, burial, and most importantly, the resurrection of Jesus Christ, we have the opportunity to have direct relationship with Jesus, and we can go straight to him. This woman had to physically go to him to get the healing. And Jesus said to her, your faith has made you well. Now, the scripture says that she was healed when she touched him. It was the faith that healed her. So why did Jesus call her out? Why did he turn around and say, who touched me? Do you think he didn't know? I believe he did, wholeheartedly so. I believe that Jesus knew. But what he wanted to do was make an example of her for others to see the importance of her faith. Scripture says that the faith of a mustard seed can move a mountain. Can you imagine a faith strong enough to know that you will be healed just by going to Jesus? Can you imagine entrusting Jesus with your plans, your hopes, your dreams, and knowing that he cares so much about you that he will give you your desires if your desires are in line with his? As athletes, you have so many things pressing on you. You're pulled in so many different directions, but we need such clarity in our faith, like this woman, this unnamed woman whose story is being told more than 2,000 years later because of the incredible faith she had. Now, she was scared. She was terrified. Just having faith doesn't mean that everything's going to go well all the time. Just having faith doesn't mean that we're not going to be questioned or pointed out. Just having faith doesn't mean we won't have to risk things. But do you see the end result? Jesus looked down to this trembling woman who was scared and looked at her and said, daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace. Don't you want Jesus to look at you and say, your faith has made you well? Your faith needs to start, be grounded in a foundation on the rock. It needs to start in a relationship with Jesus Christ that is so strong that it cannot be moved by the storms that come in your life, whether they be physical, whether they be emotional. Right now, with the recording of this video, we are quarantined. We're in the pandemic of 2020. So this woman was very alone. Did you experience that? This woman could not go out in public. Did you experience that? She couldn't be hugged by her family or anybody else. Did you experience that right now? 12 years was a long time, and no one would have wanted to be around her. We are going through things right now in our history where we're isolated just like this woman was. But Jesus has open arms, and he's waiting for us to take that step to come to him. It was the faith that healed her, and your faith can make you well. I hope that's an encouragement for you today.